Citizenship in Kenya for members of the ethnic Shona community. After decades of being stateless, the Shona received new legal status.
By the end of January, Nigeria is expected to receive approximately 100,000 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines. According to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, 42 million doses will be secured to cover 20% of Nigerian population. Hello, and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Osoa, Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori from Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent Makori. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, our broadcast looks a little different for now. We appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain Oso in Lagos brings you that story.
Nigeria is expected to take delivery of approximately 100,000 doses of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccines by the end of January. That's according to the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, which says that 42 million doses of the vaccines, which will be a combination of all available and approved vaccines in the market, will be secured to cover 20% of the Nigerian population.
As Nigeria battles the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 announces that 100,000 doses of vaccines are expected in a few weeks.
Nigeria is expected to secure free delivery of 42 million doses of vaccines, which will be a combination of all the available and approved vaccines currently in the market. This is expected to cover about 20% of the population. 40% will be vaccinated in 2021, while 30% will be covered next year.
While giving a timeline of Nigeria's access to the vaccine, the PTF is also calling for more cooperation from state governments.
We are asking state governments to please set up task force teams that are empowered to make sure that people wear face masks in public and observe all the rules that we have put in place.
Meanwhile, health workers who are treating infected patients express worry over the rising numbers.
My first 15 patients that I saw on Monday, 14 tested positive to COVID antigen rapid test, and we had to tell them to do the PCR test. And same thing yesterday, the whole place in front of the hospital was quite filled. Out of 25 initial patients I saw, I think about 15 were positive.
Survivors of the virus also share their experience.
I now started having a really bad fever. I started to feel as if I was drowning, as if my lungs were filling up with water. And I started to have really bad pain at my upper back.
As Nigerians are with the rollout of the vaccines, medical experts say that observing all the COVID-19 protocols, such as wearing a face mask and ensuring social distancing, will go a long way towards reducing the risk of contracting the virus.
Let's get more on this story from a senior lecturer of molecular biology at the University of Lagos, Dr. Joseph Binari. Thank you for joining us on Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
Well, what do you make of government's plan to roll out 100,000 vaccines by the end of January?
I think it's an action in the right direction to roll out the 100,000 doses of vaccine. Even though some people are complaining that probably the amount is little, is small. But I think since it seems so many Nigerians are still skeptical about this, I think it's still okay to roll out that 100,000, and then let's see how it goes, most especially when we also have information that we have a variant that is also peculiar to us in Nigeria. So I think for now, it's still action in the right direction.
How would you suggest they go about addressing those who are skeptical about taking the jab?
Yes, I think a lot needs to be done. We need a lot of sensitization. There are a lot of fake news and information going around the social media, and that is why we look up to conventional media houses like this to bring up scientists to explain. Some of those things people are saying concerning the vaccine are not really true. Some people said the mRNA is going to alter the DNA, which is not possible. The human body normally has its own mRNA, and that mRNA goes outside the nucleus. The chromosome is inside the nucleus. That's where the DNA is. So after replication and transcription, mRNA is exported to the ribosome. Now the vaccine we're having, especially the Pfizer vaccine, made up of the mRNA of the virus, because the virus is a positive sense RNA virus. That means it can just easily start to produce the protein. So what they did was to get the mRNA of the virus and then inject it. So the mRNA goes to the ribosome of the cell and then produces what we call the spike protein. That is what the virus uses to enter the cell. So the body sees it as, oh, this is the virus that is coming, and then you'll be able to mobilize the antibodies against it. So the mRNA from the vaccine cannot go inside the nucleus, because that's where the DNA resides. So people saying that the mRNA is going to penetrate and then alter our DNA is not true. So we need more information to explain to Nigerians so that they understand. Yes, this mRNA, we have 4 different types of way that majorly vaccine comes out. We have where we weaken or inactivate the virus. That's a conventional one that we are used to. We also have a case whereby you have the protein. We also have the case whereby you have the virus vector. And this 4th one is what is coming up on board now, where you use the RNA or the DNA to actually introduce inside the cell to mimic, to produce that protein that the virus produces, but all other accessories that can cause the virus to replicate or to cause disease condition will not be produced. So the body just sees it, and then it will just respond with the antibodies. So those are the information that we need, because when you just check on the social media, people, the non-scientists, will just come up, we just fabricate something and then throw it there, and everybody is scared and everybody is skeptical.
So how do we explain to those who are still skeptical about the efficacy of the vaccine, especially with the discovery of this variant, this new variant, and the challenge of a second wave?
Yeah, thank you very much. Concerning the variant, yes, we have different variants. Even in the UK, they noticed that there is mutation at the point of 501. Okay, they call it the N501Y mutation. And what that means is that a particular amino acid, the code for that particular amino acid has actually changed. You see, mutation on viruses are not new. We have mutations severally. Viruses like this, we have a lot of mutations. In fact, this coronavirus, we have thousands of mutations that have happened already. But most of them are non-synonymous. Why some are synonymous? That means some of them is of no effect in affecting the behavior of the virus. And also, let me also make this clear that the mutation is also of an advantage, because we also use it in our own research to track the movement. We can actually track the movement of the virus to tell you that, oh, this virus is from China, this is from India, this is from United States, and so on and so forth. So, but we have some striking ones that have raised some concerns. Generally, theoretically speaking, the vaccine is actually meant to target, to mobilize the antibodies to target the spike protein. The spike protein is the one that binds with the ACE2. That's the entry point of the cell. So most of the vaccine is targeted at that protein. So theoretically speaking, there shouldn't be any problem even with the variants. However, that does not still mean that as scientists, we will still need to also double check just to be double sure. But theoretically speaking, there shouldn't be any problem so far.
Oh, but not translate that way, but thank you for coming on Africa 54, Dr. Joseph Minari.
Thank you.
Girls' education rights group, the Malala Fund, says the majority of Nigeria's out-of-school children during the pandemic are girls, and that the gap with boys is widening. Ifiok Itang reports from Jos, Nigeria.
This has been a daily chore of 13-year-old Joy Pam since the pandemic forced schools to close down in March. Even though schools have reopened now, she still has to continue with her chores at home, even though her classmates are back in school.
When I see them going to school, tears will start dropping out from my eyes. I wish my parents could get the money and pay my school fees to go back to school because I want to go back to school and study.
Malala Fund at Education Rights Group for Girls says Nigeria has more girls who are out of school than boys, especially in the north.
Before the COVID pandemic, Nigeria had 13.2 million children out of school. Over 50% of that number are girls. Once the pandemic hit, up to way more than that, about 36 million children were out of school.
According to Malala Fund research, during the lockdown, many girls faced challenges accessing distance learning options provided by the government.
Girls are in rural areas. A lot of them did not have access to television or radio because they don't have electricity. There are also cultural and social norm factors where these girls are not able to have access to data.
The Universal Basic Education Act of 2004 offers free education for every Nigerian child, from primary to junior secondary school. But Hamzat Lawal notes there are hidden fees that many poor families can't afford.
Our campaign is saying remove hidden fee, amend the Universal Basic Education Act, and ensure compulsorily that girls and boys, particularly girls, go to school and access free 12-year education.
Let me race it.
The state's Universal Basic Education Board is calling on development partners to help fund education for children in rural communities. Ifyok Etang for VOA News, Jos, Nigeria.
Nigerian special effects expert, 32-year-old John Anaman, has taken advantage of his skill and expertise to develop hyper-realistic prosthetics that match Nigerian skin tones. Before now, most prosthetic body parts available in the country have been white or made from materials such as wood that also looks unrealistic. Take a look.
Wow, this is lovely.
Michael Sunday is delighted, if a little stunned, as he admires his new right hand, a silicone glove-like prosthetic meant to help him return to normal life after he lost 3 fingers in a car accident a year ago. The prosthetic has a hyper-realistic feel and unusually is dark in color, matching perfectly the tone of Sunday's skin.
It has really helped me because I can go about my normal life without looking at my hand, without hiding my hands, or fear of discrimination or fear of pity.
Most prosthetics available in Nigeria until now have been white or made from materials such as wood that also look unrealistic. The artist behind the creation is John Amanam, a 32-year-old former movie special effects expert. He developed an interest in prosthetics after a family member lost a limb in an accident.
I became emotional about the amputees. I discovered that I had 1 or 2 people who had amputations around me, and they had this feeling of discomfort whenever they were around normal people. And I saw it as a challenge, that if I could give back or solve this need, to go a long way to ease them of that emotional trauma of discomfort and that loss of courage.
So he started making prosthetic fingers, hands, arms, legs and ears in 2017. Depending on the size and complexity of the prosthetic, it takes 3 weeks to 2 months to make one.
I rarely find people with black skin prostheses. So I want the blacks, I want Africans in particular, to have a feel, to be closer, to have these needs solved within Africa.
Amanam has no formal training in making prosthetics but studied sculpting as an art student. His pieces are sold for at least 40,000 naira.
It's time now for a short break. As we do, we remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come. At just 7 years old, a Ugandan aviation prodigy makes his mark on local television, newspapers, and on social media. He's known as Captain Graham Shona.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Members of the ethnic Shona community in Kenya are celebrating their new status as Kenyan citizens after decades of being stateless. Brenda Molinia takes a look at what the legal change means for the Shona in this report from Nairobi.
Nazizi Dube's most prized possession is a document declaring her a citizen of Kenya. Dube is one of almost 1,700 ethnic Shona and 1,300 ethnic Rwandans who gained legal status this month after decades of being stateless.
All the challenges that we went through with the statelessness status, we were very excited knowing that all has come to an end. It was a new beginning.
The legal status means the Shona can access government services, registrations, and apply for financial support. Shona carpenter Ismail Lamini says his income suffered as he was not able to get financial services without a Kenyan ID. Their fight for legal recognition took a long time, but Lamini says it was worth it.
We will have the certificate of citizenship. It will enable me to go to a bank or any other lending institution and get a loan to enable me to do more business.
The Shona came to Kenya in the 1930s as missionaries from Zimbabwe. But when Kenya became independent from Britain in 1963, thousands missed the 2-year window to become citizens along with their children.
They were stateless, all their rights were violated. Their freedom of movement was violated. They couldn't leave the country. The few who finally managed to travel had to acquire fake or irregular identities to travel. They couldn't access education.
Kenya's Human Rights Commission and the UN's refugee UNHCR welcomed the government's granting citizenship to Shona who apply.
Legal identity is really important, and especially now that Kenya is going into the digital identity, because then they would have been left out of that system, because then they didn't have any document.
An estimated 1,300 Shona have yet to apply for citizenship, but those waiting for the certificate say they are ready to prove their worth.
We want to show that we are not just a burden to the country, but we are something else. We are birds with bright feathers. We are unworthy to be caged. That's what I will say. We now want to fly and showcase our bright feathers.
The UN's refugee agency says Kenya is home to about 18,000 stateless people, most of them ethnic minorities. Brenda Molinia for VOA News, Nairobi.
A 7-year-old Uruguayan boy, Graham Shona, has become a sensation in his country with his precocious display of aircraft knowledge and modern flying skills on local television, newspapers, and on social media. His name is prefixed with Captain.
Graham Shona, a lover of math and science, the student is flown as a trainee 3 times on a Cessna 172. He says he wants to be a pilot and an astronaut and someday travel to Mars. His role model is Elon Musk.
In future, I want to be a pilot and an astronaut. I was interested in astronomy because I wanted to go to Mars and the moon. Our moon is called Lunar Moon.
One morning at Uganda's Entebbe International Airport, his instructor asked him to explain how the engines worked on a plane parked on the tarmac. His voice struggling to rise above the roar of a plane's running engines, Shema rattles off the answer.
The inlet tube sucks in the air and it takes it to the compressor. The compressor squeezes it with the fans. After squeezing it with the fans, it becomes hot temperature.
Shema's curiosity for flight was piqued by a freak incident. When he was just 3 years old, a police helicopter flew so low to the ground that it blew off the roof of his grandmother's house on the outskirts of the Ugandan capital, Kampala, while he was playing outside. According to his mother, it triggered something in his mind.
So I was at work, and that time my son used to live at my judge's place, at my grandmom's place, because I never had a maid at that time. So I was at work. They called me. It happened when my son was outside. He spotted everything, what happened. So from that day, my son got much interested in aviation.
Last year, Shema's mother contacted a local aviation academy, and Shema began lessons at home on aircraft parts and aviation vocabulary. After 5 months of coursework, his mother paid for practical flying lessons. He flew 3 times as co-pilot between January and March before the pandemic stopped his practice. Shema has since been focusing on aviation theory and immersing himself in video about aviation and space exploration on his virtual reality viewer.
Botswana, home to nearly half of Africa's wild elephants, is preparing to repatriate thousands of the giant mammals to neighboring Angola to reduce overpopulation and conflict with farmers. Tens of thousands of elephants fled Angola's decades-long civil war to Botswana, as Mkonde Sidube reports from Chobe.
Botswana is home to more than 130,000 elephants, the world's largest wild population. But tens of thousands are actually refugees who fled Angola's decades-long civil war, which ended in 2002. Conservationists say Botswana's elephant population has grown too big, leading to conflicts with farmers and shortages of food and water.
So a way to release this bottleneck, this compression, is creating safe corridors for elephants to move through, to repopulate and recolonize southeast Angola, where there are not so many elephants.
To enable this, Angola has agreed to remove leftover landmines from the war, and along with Botswana, fences that are blocking elephant migration.
We still get reports of poaching incidents in Angola. We know the landmines are still an issue, although they are working to try and get them out. So I don't know. I mean, this is what I do know, that it is quite important that we open up these corridors.
Botswana is part of the Kavango-Zambezi Transfrontier Conservation Area, CASA, a 5-country partnership to conserve shared natural resources. The group's executive director, Nyambe, says the partnership's goal is the free movement of wildlife within the region.
The long-term survival of elephants hinges on ensuring that we secure and connect or reconnect wildlife movement corridors, and on a transboundary scale. So when it comes to what the partner states are doing in terms of supporting, particularly Angola, the 6 wildlife dispersal areas are all contributing to that process.
Botswana's President Mokwetsi Masisi has said they are more than willing to assist their neighbors with opening the borders to elephant migration and better management of their numbers. Mkonde Sidube for VOA News, Chobe, Botswana.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
Many thanks, Vincent. We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Don't forget, Channels TV is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Uso. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.